What's up, YouTube? This is Taylor with Brothers Lawn Maintenance. Making this as a part 2 to check the electrical system on your PTO clutches. The last video I made was about how to adjust the PTO clutch. This is going to be how to diagnose one if the electrical system on your mower is bad or the clutch itself is just bad. So let's get started. The first thing you want to do is get yourself a decent multimeter. This one here is a Klein tool. It's got at Home Depot. I think it was like 70 bucks for a triple pack with some other electrical testing tools. Obviously, this is going to be where you're going to be for the DC stuff. This is where I like to be for the ohms or the resistance check. So the first thing I like to do, we'll set this down where you guys can see it, is check the battery voltage. Now, you see I'm hooked up. If y'all happen to get it backwards and you get the positive on the negative and vice versa, it'll still read. It's just going to show a negative number. You see this battery is good. We're at 12.7 volts. 12.6 is a fully charged battery. That's 2.1 volts per cell in the battery. Now, the first and easiest thing to do would be to check your fuses. You have two fuses on these older Scags. This is a 2015 Tiger Cat 1 with a 22 horsepower Kawasaki. This video applies to pretty much all of your Tiger Cubs, all your Cats that have roll bars. So some of the earlier Cubs didn't have roll bars. Their electrical system is a little different. And the Tiger Cat 2s are different because they have a Tiger's Eye monitoring system. So check your fuses. They just pop out. On your older machines, they won't have this fancy cover. They will just be clipped in here. You can update the harness, or you can update the fuse holders. You can buy these and just solder them on. I would suggest solder, heat shrink, tape it all up, put it together. So, you're mowing along, or go to start your blades won't come on. There's a few things to check. The way this electrical system works is it picks up 12 volts off the bottom of the starter lug. The battery supplies 12 volts to the starter via the big large starting cable, and there's one wire that comes off the harness adapter for the engine. It's a red wire, and that's what feeds everything up here. So I'm gonna take my negative lead and go ahead and clamp it to the battery so I can have a hand free. You don't have to do this. Obviously, I'm trying to make a video, so bear with that. Now, you got multiple wires up here. This is your ignition switch. The yellow wire is purely for your charging system. This goes straight to your regulator. The red wire down here in the corner is what feeds the mower. You see key on, this is sending power everywhere on the machine. Your solenoid on the bottom of the carburetor, the wiring harness, etc. There's other systems involved. This is primarily just the PTO clutch system. Sorry, it was bouncing around loose up here. But you see, key off, we have no volts. So if you don't have voltage here, check your fuses, go down to your starter lug on the bottom of the starter, and see if you got power there. And if you got power there, you can go right here. See if I can find it real quick. Try not to get too off topic. This is your engine harness adapter. That red wire right there is where power comes in the machine. Obviously, I have power, so it's not necessarily something I have to check. But if you don't have power down there, you have a connection issue with your starter most likely. But let's assume, because that's not a normal thing, let's assume you've got power over up here to your ignition switch. Now, you have power coming to the PTO switch via this same wire. Now, that's with the key on. With the key off, you have nothing nowhere. So this jumper wire right here just feeds over the other side of the lead on the PTO switch. You have power here. If you don't have power here, it's something in your harness that's bad, and these harnesses can't be repaired. They're about 300 bucks. Buy your harness. Typically, it's not the power side that fails, it's actually the ground side. I replaced a lot of harnesses on the older ones, but that's not a typical failure. If you have that issue, most likely you have other problems. Anyways, getting back to this. This is where your power comes in. Again, the ignition switch is still on. The PTO switch is down. Once you pull the PTO switch and engage it, this blue wire should be energized with 12 volts or more. You see mine works. If you do not have power on this blue wire, your PTO switch is bad. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to stop there. You need to stop there. But that would mean that your PTO switch is bad. So replace your PTO switch and recheck. Now, the PTO switch is not only an engagement switch, it's also a disengagement switch. This has a safety wire going to your safety control box that when you pull the switch, it has ground on it or no volts. You close it, it's got power on it. That tells the mower, hey, the blades are engaged, the seat switch is engaged, everything's doing what it's supposed to, hey, we're ready to go. If for some reason you pull the PTO switch and the seat switch is not engaged or whatever, then it'll shut the mower off. You see my seat is up. I bypass the seat switches on these things as soon as I go. It's the first thing I do. I move around a lot, bouncing up, down, anyways, it's something I do. I don't recommend doing it unless you've been operating these things for a very long time and you're very confident in them, because they can't hurt you. Anything can happen. So this wire for this video doesn't matter, but you get blue wire, you get power on the blue wire. This goes directly to the clutch. Now you can see the clutch right down here. I'm gonna change up my camera angle just a little bit. Zoom y'all in. Now you see I've got it disconnected. This wire right here, this is your harness side. Those two green wires belong to your clutch. Now, key is still on. The switch is still engaged. So we should have power to the blue wire. Let's check it and find out. So you see, we're touching the spade down here. We've got the same amount of voltage coming from the switch to the PTO clutch. Again, if you have power up here at the switch on the blue wire, and you do not have it down here, you have a fault in the harness. They cannot be repaired. I've seen people try to take them apart, cut them apart. You wind up just tearing the harness up. Go buy your harness. That's that. Again, not a common failure. So I'll teach you, I'll show you how to check the ground in just a second. The next thing to do, you know you have power there. Let's swap our leads around here. Now you need to take your negative lead and put it on the battery, or on the positive side of the battery, sorry. Tighten up my vice grips here. Now, we're going to check the negative side of the connector, which is the black wire. And we should have voltage. You see we have voltage down here. This doesn't matter if the switch is on or not. The ground's always go to ground. It has nothing to do with the ignition switch. The whole reason you have to swap the leads around is basically you want to tell the ground side, hey, you know, you don't, well, I'll tell you about, you don't necessarily have to swap the leads around. But anyways, that's getting into another theory. Now, we have power, we have ground on the mower side. So your PTO switch is good, your wiring is good. Now we need to check the clutch itself. So I swap my multimeter around to right here. This is the setting on mine. It's got several different settings for ohms. I always typically use the diode, or the noisemaker is what I call it. So now I'll zoom y'all out just a hair so y'all can see everything. You can see the multimeter. Now, first thing to this whole test, check your multimeter. You see we have 0.3 ohms of resistance in these wires, so that's built into the multimeter themselves. Now, take your two wires. Here's your spade connector for the clutch. Push these in here. You see we have 2.4 ohms of resistance. Subtract the 2 ohms that's built into the multimeter itself, we have 2.2. The spec is 1.5 to 1.4 to 2.6. Anywhere in that range is good. When they start getting low or high, over or under that, is when you get a problem. Now, if you're running these things along and you stop, disengage the blades, talk to your customer, pick up trash, whatever the case may be, and you go to re-engage them and they won't re-engage after it's got good and warm, you can take the mower and just pop a small wheelie. And if they come back on with a PTO switch engaged, then your PTO clutch air gap is bad. I would still recommend checking the clutch, because it'll tell you what kind of health the clutch is in. If it's starting to get low or high, typically they get low, they don't usually ever go high. But the last thing I'll say about the PTO clutches themselves, and I'm gonna move on to making another video, is if you have one that's locked up and you think the engine's all of a sudden went bad, it's this bearing right here. These are always one that fail. This is a sealed bearing, and you'll be surprised, that thing will lock up, the clutch will engage, and it will lock that machine down. You'll think the engine just run like it's running out of oil. So if you guys find this this handy or helpful, y'all let me know. I appreciate the likes, follow, comment, subscribes. The guy that left me the comment, I hope this video helps you and shows you what you need to see. These things are very simple to work on if you understand how they work. So I appreciate it, guys. Y'all have a great day.